Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 6, Episode 11. Now, the last episode, we were at Mary's church and she had, preached a good sermon, got to some of the ladies. Hopefully they received some good word. And we are now in the car with Lisa and Meredith as they are talking about what happened in church. And as we can also see, we see Whitney and Heather because they also left church. And I guess all the ladies are now going to meet up at a restaurant to have lunch. So the ladies all meet up at the restaurant and you can tell there's a bit of a tension. And to find out they get to leave with a guest bag of betta fish, that's cute. But we all see the ladies, they start to sit down. And I guess it's quiet for a while because nobody wants to, start off with the conversation. Now, Heather breaks the tension a little bit with the toast of the Dom Perignon. And then after a while, it does get quiet again. But, of course, Mary, she's going to fully break the ice now. And she's going to let them know all why they are now at lunch and what are they going to talk about. Now, Mary does start off with why she did not invite Brittany. And that's because Brittany told her she was the most ungodly person she's ever met. And I get that. You're not going to, taint what I do or talk trash about what I do and then expect to be invited. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm also glad that Mary called her and told her, look, I'm not inviting you. This is why. You know why, and that's what it's going to be. Now, in that moment on the phone, Brittany did apologize. Mary said she received it and she thought it was genuine. And of course, it brings her to her next thing, her next item. If Brittany can apologize, so can the women. Now, in the middle of Mary's talking, Heather interrupts because I guess Heather had felt what Mary had said about being apologetic towards one another, and she wanted to point it out to Lisa. Heather, why couldn't you wait until Mary finished? You know how Mary does not like to be interrupted while she is talking. That whole little moment could have just waited until Mary had finished. But as Heather goes on, she does reiterate what happened on the plane, and of course, Lisa and Meredith are still stuck to they're sticking to their claim and they're not saying nothing else, that they didn't do nothing. They don't know what happened, and we did not discuss what happened on the plane. But y'all discussed it privately with the other ladies. You just haven't discussed it with Brittany. Meredith, you talked to Mary. Lisa, you talked to Heather. And, you definitely talked about it. You definitely tried to change your whole story and gaslight the women on what they saw. And they're just not buying it. But they both do agree on something. They both do agree that Meredith was upset and she was venting. But I think Lisa and Meredith are just downplaying what they did versus what was seen. And even at this point, the ladies, Meredith and Lisa, are still sticking to what they're saying, and I wish we could see what happened on that plane so we can get a better understanding. But from what the other ladies are saying, it wasn't as minimum as they're trying to make it. It was definitely a bit volatile, shaking the seat as she's in it. And even if she can hear you through her headphones while she's watching the movie, then you weren't being quiet. You weren't just venting to your friend. You were loud. You were antagonistic. But now the ladies are questioning them because they're just adamant. You're not going to change the story of what happened. We were on this plane for about 5 and some odd hours. You did not sleep because we heard you the entire flight. Yeah, you may have watched Crazy Rich Asians and Lisa may have seen it before, which is how she knew the ending. But Meredith's talking about, I probably fell asleep. I don't even remember the other movie that I watched. That's because you didn't watch a movie, Meredith. You were too busy antagonizing Brittany. But as we can see, Meredith and Lisa, they're going to hold their little pack together. No matter what, they're going to stick together, and we're seeing it play out right now. Now, even in this argument, you hear Meredith go, I feel badly for hurting Brittany's feelings, but you haven't reached out to Brittany at all. And now you want Brittany to feel bad? No, for what? She said something about your husband cheating on you with some girl on TikTok. You could have handled that then. You chose not to handle it. You chose to wait to get on a plane and talk loudly behind somebody else. Any other time, say it to her face. And once again, Heather kind of stepping up. She said, Meredith, you kind of lost your right to cry because of how you harassed Brittany on the plane. And I agree, your feelings, you are entitled to your feelings, but once you got on the plane and did that despicable or however they're describing act, you did kind of lose the right because you lost full control when you guys could have had a talk once you got off the plane. Now, after Heather had told Meredith that she has lost the privilege to be sad, not to speak, Meredith, but to be sad, people's not going to feel sorry for you after the way you acted. Meredith no longer wants to speak. And of course, Lisa chimes in. She's going to help her friend. They're going to keep that pact going. And yes, she is entitled to her feelings. We said that. She is entitled to her feelings. However, when you act like that on the plane, it does tip the scale. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You were just sad, and now you're being this very aggressive person on the plane that's antagonizing this woman to the point where she's crying. And during that midst of the of that argument, or the point that they were making, Heather did ask Lisa, well, you know what? Why didn't you go through customs with us? And I'm not familiar with customs. I'm not familiar with global entry, but Lisa said that she forgot she had global entry, and Whitney just sat there and proved that, honey, having global entry is something you have. It's not something that you have to add to your ticket. Now, I'm not sure. I ain't never been nowhere but America, so I can't tell you. So now the ladies are catching Lisa in her lie, and, they're starting to call her out. Now, in the moment, Mary does make a good point. Your feelings were valid, Meredith, and the women all do love you. But at the same time, as a person who loves you, I can call you out on your bullshit. That is a form of support. We're going to let you know where you're wrong so you can correct yourself. And then we start to see the cracks on Lisa, because Lisa then said, well, you know what? Meredith did say basically it's you or Brittany, to support her. So, of course, Meredith's going to deny it. But now we're starting to see that little pact that they had is not holding up. While the ladies are trying to get Meredith to see where she went wrong and how, of course, Meredith, she's going to deflect. So she's going to throw out just enough jab to Whitney, saying, well, you know what? I know you've been saying things behind my back. So, let's just not do this at all. So Whitney's, of course, question, who said anything about your back? I've never said anything. And then it clicks to Brittany. You know what? I've been talking to Bronwyn for a while. And then we see Meredith throw Bronwyn under the bus to get the heat up off of her. So Bronwyn then brings up what Whitney told her at their lunch about how Meredith was drinking at the club before they got on the flight, and things that she was saying before they got on the plane. In this moment, I do love Whitney, because at the same time, she's like, yep, I said that, because let me tell you how I really feel. But basically, Meredith is not letting up. She's sticking to her story. And now all of the ladies are like, look, I'm trying to support you. I'm trying to believe you. But you know what? Look, it sounds like you were a problem. And, you just need to own up to it. And now you need to change your behavior. So, Lord, the lunch is finally over, y'all. And we get to see in this next scene, Mary and Angie doing more friend things, bonding, and they're working out. And then we hop over to Bronwyn's house. I guess she's making some brownies or some type of cake. And she's talking with her mother, and no, oh my goodness, I didn't know Bronwyn was not a citizen, but she was born in Brazil, and she has to talk about her citizenship. Now, it's nice to know a little bit more about Bronwyn. She's born in Brazil. Her family is actually from the UK, and she just has a dual citizenship from all of those. And then she also expresses that she's excited for, possible jury duty. Bronwyn is not what is always cracked up to be, honey. Trust me, jury duty sucks. But it is nice to see Bronwyn and her mom spending, bonding more, having more of a connection, because we saw how Bronwyn was in the beginning of the season with how their relationship was when she gotten pregnant with Gwen. And then we also segue over to Heather's life, her new home, her new office. Her daughters are visiting from school. She's an empty nester. And I love this, I love where Heather is going. She now gets to solely focus on herself. And then we get to the nail spa where Lisa and Meredith are now, going to talk and, I guess, spend time with each other. And in this scene, I felt like the ladies, Lisa and Meredith, still on the same page. They don't know what the problem is. They don't think that they overreacted. They don't think that they were as dramatic as the ladies are saying they were, or as aggressive as the ladies were saying they were. And they still expected some type of support in that moment. But you can't get that type of support when it's causing pain to someone else. And now in this moment at the nail salon with the ladies, it looks like Meredith is taking on some of Lisa. Like, she's starting to act more like Lisa, just denying everything, changing the story, and making herself the victim. And now you're so upset with Whitney when everyone at the table was calling you out. So now you're just going to single Whitney out and then have the main problem with Whitney. That doesn't make any sense. And then in this conversation, we learned that Lisa met up with Brittany 2 days earlier. And even when Lisa was meeting up with Brittany, Lisa still denied it. She still doesn't think she had a part to play, and that she wasn't sorry for what happened to Brittany. And it wasn't a big deal. And in the flashback, Lisa says that she apologized. When, Lisa? We didn't see it. I hope they edited it out, because we did not see Lisa apologize. And Lisa definitely doesn't feel like she should have apologized. But ultimately, after talking about Brittany and how she's not a success as a person, Meredith is trying to make it seem like she's going to be the bigger person and she's going to talk to Brittany. So in this next scene, we see Whitney, I don't know why, but she got herself a U-Haul. And I guess they are getting rid of Heather's mattress, her marital mattress, so she can swap it out and get a new one. And on the way from loading the mattress onto the U-Haul to the mattress recycling place, of course the ladies are going to talk. They have a drive to take. So the ladies are discussing Meredith and Lisa. They haven't talked to the ladies in a minute since the lunch. And after watching the ladies talk about the situation in the car and how Whitney now feels about Bronwyn because she ran and told Whitney now feels about Bronwyn and how Bronwyn ran and told Meredith everything that Whitney had said. So we know that, Whitney is not really feeling Bronwyn right now. We get to the next scene and we start to see Brittany show up to a place with her daughter. I guess they're still working on creating that bond, creating a relationship between themselves. And you know what? It looks like the ladies are going to get some therapy for their relationship. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Okay, I see Brittany. She's taking a new step into mending the relationship with her daughter. That's a smart idea. Maybe they can see, maybe have a third party to see both viewpoints and be able to help professionally get them closer. And in therapy, we kind of get a more in-depth perspective on her daughter's viewpoint of how Brittany was a mom and how she wasn't a mom to her first two kids, and then in her second marriage how she was a more devoted parent to those stepchildren. And during their first therapy session, it is going rather well. I'm loving Brittany take accountability for the things that she has caused her daughter, and it's nice to see both of them agree on a lot of things, even if it is trauma. So after the therapy session, we are now looking at Gwen, Bronwyn, and Bronwyn's mom. I guess they're looking at little plants, like bonsai plants, to start to buy and to take care of. So as all three ladies, three generations, start to bond over the bonsai tree and talking about Gwen's chameleon and how he needs to mate, we see Bronwyn getting just a little bit more relaxed because of everything that she has going on in her life. And the ladies also talk about Gwen, basically being an adult, going out, figuring out her own life, what she wants to do, and, going off and starting her own, her own life. And of course, we can see Bronwyn's face. So she does not want her daughter to leave, but at the same time, Bronwyn, honey, got to let that baby grow and sprout her own wings. Like at some point in time, you have to let Gwen go and, basically start her own life so she can have her own family. But it does seem like her mom and Gwen all want to enter different chapters in their lives, and it's time, Bronwyn, for you to enter a new chapter too. You can let your daughter go off and be grown, and let your mom, your mom was independent before you, and she was with your dad, so let your mom have a little bit of freedom. I don't think your mom's going to move too far away, but let your mom have a little bit of independence and freedom, while her husband is sick, and they spend those time, and then you can start something. You don't have to just be Todd's wife. You can just create something of your own. You have that space. Why not try something? So in this last scene, we finally see Meredith and Brittany meet up to have their talk. Both ladies meet up at a park, and they all sit down on the bench to have that face-to-face talk and discuss what actually happened on the plane, and if Meredith is going to even apologize to Brittany. Now, in Meredith's apology, she mentions that she's sorry that, Brittany heard what Lisa said, not what I said about you, but okay. And then she goes on to say that she's sorry that her feelings, that Meredith hurt her feelings. And I don't really feel like, Meredith is trying to sound sincere, but you can tell from Meredith, she doesn't look like she even cares. She's going to get this apology out, and if Brittany doesn't even receive it, she doesn't really care. She said it. She openly said it, and that's just where she's going with it. And we see that Brittany forgave her. Not forgave her, but accepted the apology. And, Brittany also explains that, I'm trying to have more acceptance and forgiveness in my heart, so why not branch out and start accepting and forgiving others as well. And Brittany also, brought up the TikTok video, and she took accountability for bringing it out and kind of just making it bigger and trying to bring up Merida's personal business to everyone. So there we have it. Both ladies apologized to each other, which should have happened off the boat or even before they even got off the boat. But as this episode ends, we see that the ladies come to an agreement and they plan to move forward. So that's the end of the episode. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Bye.